I only caused trouble over the all I know is after 30 years, the senator outranks the House. How did David just posted to the stairs? Was that song? You should be there. I got consulted on it. You gotta address the situation. That's right. We're taking advantage of your first time as writing on this. Everything is all good. I looked at yours. I feel bad for you. You're stuck on all my commitments. It's a good thing. I really want to be on another one too. Which one is that? Here it's like. Numbers. I thought for sure you were still on. And Steve Harder. Well, he's always been on there as a council.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. They can still have three. They have choices.
That's what I thought. If I can get back on, so I would take on the expertise. I like it a lot. I would take it on.
And you were really good. Because you have senior private investigator and breakfast. Like a lot of that stuff, second nature. to you.
You let me on halfway through it. So my first term, I said, I don't mind doing more work. He's like, yeah, you let me on. Then session, put me on, and then something on the ratio, the extender that he wants.
Yeah, I went through like the bulletin, just looked through the now. Now, I don't know about you, but I think a lot of companies, they said like five. One class.
I mean,
It's crazy. Let me see what I can do. I'll at least look into it.
Right.
Yeah, I'd love to have you there.
All right, do we want to get going, folks? Yes, no, maybe. Commissioner, you want to come on up with your staff?
So wait a second. At some point.
Okay, we will call the public hearing of the general committee to order. And we have 4 proposed bills on the agenda for the public hearing today. All of which concern liquor in some respect or another, although not the liquor issue that we're going to hear on Thursday. So apropos to that, first up, we have Commissioner Siegel, who's prepared to testify on her proposed bill and any other comments you have with respect to that, Commissioner. If you could also just introduce yourself and your staff. We've got a few new committee members this year. I'm sure they'd love to get to know you and hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for letting us testify today. So as he said, I'm Michelle Siegel. I'm the commissioner at the Department of Consumer Protection. With me is Caitlin Anderson. She's our liquor control director. So we're here in support of HB 6548. That's a bill that was requested by the department, and we appreciate you guys considering it. Does a variety of things, some of which are technical fixes to kind of streamline our licensing. We address areas where we're seeing maybe some lack of parity among license types, trying to streamline our permitting process, and then address some problems we're sometimes seeing with the professional consultants or where we have permittees who maybe interact with us on behalf of actual business owners. So all the details of that, aside from being in the bill, are in my written testimony. We've also provided some testimony regarding House Bill 5431 and Senate Bill 905. So with that, thank you again for having us, and we're happy to answer any questions.
And committee members, if you don't know Attorney Anderson, you should get to know her. She's the new liquor control commissioner, and probably 90% of your questions that you may ask leadership about that sort of thing, we just pass along to her and her staff. So get to know her. Feel free to consult with her when you've got issues locally or otherwise as well. And I'll open it up for questions to committee members for the commissioner. Can you just summarize the other testimony that you submitted today with?
Yeah, let me pull that up. So we submitted testimony and with regard to House Bill 5431, it requires some modifications of application process for temporary liquor permits for nonprofit entities. DCP shares the goals of that bill. It's actually this sort of overarching ideas encompassed in our bill. And so we're happy to follow up with proponents and make sure that their vision is also incorporated into what we're proposing, but we think it more or less is. We also observed with regard to Senate Bill 905. So this is the one related to tobacco bars. Just wanted to make sure everybody's aware, we're not taking a position on the policy of that, but that the way that bill's written right now, it addresses sort of the environmental piece of that, but the Liquor Control Act would also need to be amended because there currently isn't a tobacco bar permit type. So it'd probably fall within the cafe permit, but we would need to, and we're happy to work with the committee if you go in that direction. And then this one did a bunch of other things too. So I can go through it if you'd like.
That's the committee liquor bill, and I'll note, we've already received
Okay.
feedback from your staff on certain parts of that to help us massage our language. I fully expect JFS language to come out on the committee liquor bill to address not only that issue on the tobacco bars, but other items that your staff has both technical and substantive pointed out to us, like, hey, if you change this, you've got to change this section. We really always appreciate that. I think committee members, new ones are learning, and the old ones are still learning that there's always a domino to fall with our liquor statutes. And if you change one thing, you have to make sure you make commensurate changes elsewhere. So we appreciate the feedback. And so members are aware with respect to the committee liquor bill, which has a number of items in it, there will be JFS language to clean a lot of those things up.
Yeah, I think most of our other feedback on that was relatively minor, and it's along those lines, but of course, we're happy to work with you all.
Great. Any other questions for the commissioner? Commissioners? Representative Tigliano.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner. How are you? If you want to go to line 1167, I was just hoping that maybe you could explain your thought process on that particular paragraph.
This is the one where we're trying to make sure that to address situations where we have sort of some professional backers. So sometimes it becomes a challenge where we have certain people who really serve as a backer for a lot of different permittees, but aren't necessarily involved into the day-to-day running of the business. And so it just creates some challenges when now the permit holder is somewhat separated from the business itself.
Are you saying that this only applies to somebody who's applying to be a permittee or just a general investor in the business entity?
Yeah, I can let Caitlin explain it a bit more.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. This does apply to specify that the permittee must be connected with the business, the backer in some way, shape, or form. We have seen recently where there are professional permittees who are hired and pay a flat fee to become permittee for the business, but have no true connection. And in the event of an unfortunate enforcement action or disciplinary measures need to be taken, this individual is not necessarily connected to the daily operations and cannot speak to the daily operations nor assist in fixing any of the issues that may be arising in that permit premise. So the department is seeking to require that our permittees actually be responsive to the business and connected in some way to facilitate our ability to work with them in the event any issues may arise.
In theory, wouldn't that person, even though maybe they can't help fix the problem, they'd be responsible for the problem? This doesn't absolve them. If they're a professional permittee, they're literally putting they're on the line for any serious incident that happened.
They are, but it unfortunately becomes this sort of where everyone's pointing their finger at the other. The professional permittee is pointing at the backer is pointing at the permittee, and it can be difficult for us to establish a plan that effectuates a change because there is no connection there.
But if the professional permittee is ultimately responsible, they're literally on the hook, either civilly or criminally, if something bad happens within the establishment. So, I mean, I'm just saying that you have somebody to point the finger at. They're the one that put their name up above the door as the permittee.
That is correct. Their name is on the door. They are summoned, but from our perspective, our ultimate goal is to get compliance, and they may not be the person who, while we will hold them accountable, we ultimately can't get compliance from them.
But don't you have authority over the actual liquor license of the business? Like, so, maybe the permittee maybe doesn't show up for the meeting, but the DCP has the ability to pull that establishment's license if they're not doing what they're supposed to do? I mean,
Yes.
isn't that enough? I mean, just as a conversation, I'm not being accusatory, but isn't that enough? You literally could stop them from ringing a cash register if they don't comply.
If the Liquor Control Commission agreed, yes, we could pull the license.
Okay, and then I didn't see it, so I can't point to the line, but there was some increased penalty for submitting the your fire inspection along with your renewal application.
Yes, I'd be happy to get the line for you.
Thank you.
I can, and, you know, Caitlin can go through the details, but yeah, it's basically a challenge we have is we need a fire marshal certificate when a business renews. And what sometimes will come up is, you know, they don't submit it. And so we'll ask repeatedly, but really our only penalty is to eventually, you know, bring them in for a compliance meeting, have a hearing, doing all of that to take it away. And it just takes up an enormous amount of resources because we haven't been inclined to just shut a business down if they don't quite get the fire marshal certificate
Right.
to us right at the time of renewal. So, but we need something because businesses are realizing, oh, we'll just send in the renewal. We're not going to bother with the fire certificate thing. And then we're spending forever following up trying to get that. So we need there to be a bit more of a way for us to incentivize them to do that quickly.
So I'm sympathetic as someone who has to go through this process. Every town is different. I mean, sometimes you call the fire marshal and they're right out there, they do the inspection and it goes well. Sometimes you call and they tell you there's a 2-3 month, you know, waiting period, or they don't come back and do the reinspection. Is there any particular reason why we do this? You could renew your food license without a health inspection going with the food license up to the state. But yet the health department comes in repeatedly throughout the year to make sure that you're in compliance. They could shut you down if you're not. Is there a reason we're not saying, in theory, you're not saying that the fire marshals can inspect, but why do we have to have that one slip of paper at that point in time?
There is statutory and regulatory provisions that require the approval of local fire local fire officials in order to issue a license and a renewal. And so that is where the submission of the fire marshal certificate on renewal comes from.
But in theory, the fire marshal could come in at any time and enforce any rule they want, whether or not your license is up for renewal or not.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for taking the time to come before us and answer some of our questions as we're considering certain pieces of legislation. Kind of to that point, another bill that may be before us, and I don't know if it's touched on 6548. When someone has a license that expires, they have to do a certain amount of steps to get their license back. Maybe one is having an inspection. It's my understanding that, originally to get this liquor license, you're going to have insurance, bonding, certain types of things done when you apply. Certain things expire, like maybe a fire inspection. But what about insurance? So if somebody has insurance, a DRAM insurance, is that also getting checked when they're doing this type of reapplication?
The state does not require proof of insurance in order to issue an initial license or a renewal.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you for answering my question.
Further questions or comments from committee members? Anybody online have questions for the commissioners? All right. Thank you both very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think online we have a couple of representatives who've signed up, and I don't know if Representative Dubitsky's available online or in the building. All right, we've got you, Doug. Hang on a second. Doug, can you hear us?
I can.
There you are. You're up, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. my name keeps flashing in front of me. Do you see me as well?
We do not see you yet. We can hear you.
That's odd. My camera is pointing right at me, so I apologize that you can't see me. I can see you. Well,
As long as we can hear you, I'm happy with it. Yep. We still got him? All right, you're coming back. He's coming back on.
I am back.
There you go. Excellent.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, General Law Committee chairs and vice chairs.
Also be posting it on our website, on the Deep website. So we think that's just.
There you go. Rick, can you mute your, if folks online can make sure they mute their microphones?
And ranking
Thank you.
members. I'm here to testify about raised bill 6241, which is an act concerning farm winery permittees. The purpose of this bill is to allow a farm winery who's been wiped out by weather or a flood or something like that, but still has equipment to obtain grapes from other vineyards around the state, but within the state, in order to manufacture wine when they can't use their own grapes. That situation, and also if, let's say, a winery makes Merlot and only has Merlot grapes, but wants to do a blend of Cabernet or Merlot blend, and the neighbor has Cabernet grapes, then they could have a mix of that type. I originally introduced this bill. It became a committee bill and it got drafted. And the way it got drafted was not exactly the way I had anticipated. So the way that it is now before you essentially eliminates many of the protections that have been drafted into the statutes over the years to protect Connecticut farm wineries from, say, outside farm wines, wineries from outside the state and things like that. There's a minimum requirement of how much content needs to be grown within the state, how much needs to be on the property, etc. I've spoken with the Farm Bureau. I have spoken with the Vineyard and Winery Association, and we have some ideas of making this a bill that we can all support. As it's drafted, it's not that good, actually. I'm not sure I would support it as it's drafted because the way it cuts a big portion of Section 5. If you're looking at it, it's on page 3. Most of paragraph 5, lines 63 through 76. All of those lines are removed, and there's stuff in there that we really need to leave. So, I'm looking forward to working with the General Law Committee and with the Farm Bureau and the Vineyard and Wine Association and coming up with some language that actually does what we had all thought it should do, as opposed to the current language. And I'd be glad to listen to respond to any questions.
Right. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. And obviously it's not the intent to gut the farm winery provisions. And just so members are aware. So right now, to be a farm winery, and I'm going to paraphrase the language, but it's 30-16C5. You have to grow a minimum amount of your own fruit to get the permit and get the benefit, the commensurate benefits to be a farm winery permittee in the state of Connecticut. I think it's 25%, but averaged over a certain number of years. And this is just our fault, gutted that and didn't mean to. So Doug, I think the question for you is, are you looking for, there's two concepts that you've proposed that I think the committee did want to pursue, which is in the first instance, for that 75%, since you really only have to grow 25% of your grapes in Connecticut to start with that permit, for that 75%, I mean, right now we've got farm winery permittees who get their grapes or grape powder or whatever it is from out of state. That would that would not be touched, and they can do that now. I think what you're saying, but correct me if I'm wrong, is let's say in 1 year you've got a blight or there's a flood or whatever it is, and you can't even meet the minimum threshold. We've got some sort of force majeure exemption for that particular year that lets you sub in to meet that 25% or help get you to that 25% for a year when that sort of things happen. Would that kind of specific language be more along the lines of what you were contemplating?
Correct. And, it probably wouldn't be just for 1 year because, if an entire vineyard is wiped out by a flood, it takes 3, 4, sometimes 5 years to get vines in production. So, a vineyard would be out of production for quite a while if it suffered a complete loss. So yes, that is what we're looking at. We're looking at a way that an actual legitimate in-state vineyard could remain in business if it was unable to produce grapes for a given period of time.
Right. Okay. All right. We're gonna look at that. I mean, there is language about the average crop being defined as the average yield for the 2 largest crops for the preceding 5 years, but we can look at some language that maybe modifies that or adds some additional caveats that get you out from even under that. If there are extenuating circumstances, we'd probably want some language where, DOAG or somebody would have to certify the rationale, certify that there was an actual event that prevented
Sure.
growing. I think we'd have to rely on DOAG to tell us that
Sure.
that's
We're in that instance, we're really not looking for a sweeping change. It's essentially a tweak in order to satisfy a given circumstance. The language that's here right now is a pretty drastic change, which I don't think anybody was looking for.
all right. I think we're on the same page. We're going to work on JFS language along those lines. Other questions for the Representative Tigliano?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Doug. I have a question, and maybe the attorney for the Department of Consumer Protection might chime in. What is the regulation that stops if it's not wine, if it's not an alcoholic product that you're moving from farm A to farm B because of whatever reason, and it's either just grapes or just juice? It hasn't been fermented. It's not alcohol. What rule is there that stops that currently? Why can't one farmer give product to another farmer hasn't been turned into a controlled substance?
Oh, they can. People move vegetables and fruits and juice all the time. That's not really the issue. The issue is the manufacturer of the wine has to have a minimum content of a certain type of grapes or content that was produced on their farm. So a farm winery can get as many grapes as they want from somewhere else, from out of state, from out of country, God knows where, but they can only use in the production of their wines that are grown, grapes and juice that are grown in certain places, 25% of which has to be grown on land that they own or control.
Okay, thank you. I have a better understanding now. So we're really not talking about the moving of product. We're talking about the labeling of the product that gets moved. So I think I have a better understanding of it. It totally makes sense. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Other questions online or in person for Representative Dubitsky? All right. Thank you, Doug. I think we got a good idea how to sort of sharpen the focus of the particular language. Appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Who do we have next, MJ? Great. Could bring Representative Veach on.
Can you hear me?
We can. We can't see you just yet, but we can hear you. Still there, Donna?
Okay, yes, can you see
All
me? And
right, there you go. You're there. How you doing?
high tech here. I'm well.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Maroney and D'Agostino, ranking members Ciccarello and Rutigliano, vice chairs former Fonfara and Brown, and distinguished members of the General Law Committee. I'm here today in support of HB 6548, which contains part of the proposal that I had submitted for HB 6084, which establishes a permitting process for the auction of the sale of antique, rare, or limited wine, spirits, and beer. My constituent who has an auction house brought this to my attention. Certainly am pro business here in the state, and I believe this bill will get fixed, providing it gets through. And I thank you all for working and putting it into HB 6548. They'll also be here to speak in regards to this. And I'm hoping if you have any questions, I'd be happy, or hopefully I can answer them. The only end product of wine that I like is the wine at the end to drink. I don't know much more about the process. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Representative. Yeah, there's a rarefied air out there in marketplace for certain wines and liquors that individuals or package stores may want an additional vehicle to use, and so we're exploring exactly that. Thank you for bringing this to our attention last year, and we've worked up some language this year to try to get to that again. And I want to remind everybody, we're talking about alcoholic liquors that have gone through the 3-tier system already. So you bought that bottle of what's that bourbon that Pappy Van Winkle, 10 years ago from your package store in Connecticut for $100, and now it's worth $1,000, but you want to try to find some way to monetize that. This would allow for that vehicle. But again, I want to stress, it's not a way around the 3-tier system. We're talking about liquors that have either gone through the 3-tier system, or actually we're exploring a mechanism for the package stores as well. Let's say they've got some inventory that they want to move as well. So that's what we're looking at. I want to thank the representative for bringing it to our attention. Questions, and we will have, I think, some members of an auction house here to talk about.
Yes, I think they're both signed on it according to the list I have it at the very end. And I'm sorry that I can't be there in person today, but I have another commitment in the next 30 minutes, so I apologize.
No, thank you for jumping on remotely. Questions? All right. Thank you, Representative. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon, everyone.
You too. All right, MJ.
Our next person is going to be Joan from the CT Farm Bureau.
Joan Nichols. Online, I believe, right?
Yes, online. They're coming back in.
Joan, you there?
I am.
All
Good
right,
afternoon.
there you are.
There
Welcome.
we are. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear and see you. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. So good afternoon, Chairman Maroney, Representative D'Agostino, Vice Chairs Fonfara and Brown, and members of the General Law Committee. My name is Joan Nichols, and I'm the Executive Director for Connecticut Farm Bureau Association. I'm here today to provide testimony on House Bill 6548 and House Bill 6241. We have also submitted written testimony on both of these bills. On House Bill 6241, I believe we concur with Representative Dubitsky in the comments we've heard previously that we're opposed to the current language as written, but we welcome the opportunity to work with the committee and the General Assembly and our colleagues in the farm winery industry to come up with some language that would be agreeable to all of us. On House Bill 6548, we're concerned about the language on line line 644 of that bill and line 689 of that bill, we caution about allowing manufacturers of spirits and beer to provide free tastings at farmers markets. Farm wineries were afforded this very unique opportunity to provide marketplace exposure to consumers who seek out fresh, locally grown produce at farmers markets. Farmers markets were established decades ago as a way for farmers to bring fresh produce from the farm to the local consumer. And this is the inclusion of farm winery products at farmers markets was a natural fit for our farm wineries, again, to provide consumer exposure for an outstanding Connecticut grown farm product. So we certainly would not want to undermine the value of the hard work of our farmers by allowing other products such as beer and other distilled products that really don't have any farm production associated with them at a farmer's market, where most consumers understand when they attend a farmer's market, the products that they're purchasing are fresh and have some sort of farm production and are there to support the local farms. We will be back on Thursday to talk about the support for the small farm wineries and supermarkets. Certainly not going to bring that up today. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and I appreciate your time.
Questions from committee members? All right. Thank you very much, Joan. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much and have a good day.
Up next on Zoom, we have Nick Casanelli from the CT Cigar Company promoting to panelists.
Okay.
Nick, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me now?
We can. Great.
All right. Thank you. My apologies for a little technical difficulties here. Good afternoon. I thank you for having me here and to speak on behalf of not only my cigar business, but many others throughout the state who have submitted letters for the SB 905, an act concerning alcohol, liquor, and tobacco bars, specifically Section 18 that allow for liquor permits for tobacco bars. There are many of us within the state that own tobacco bars that are in support of this, and I speak to you today on that behalf, on their behalf, and on my own behalf.
Great. Go ahead, Nick.
The proposal that is here, we'd like to we'd like to have that go through for us for many of the places within the state that do not have liquor licenses. We operate tobacco bars without this, and we all feel that if approved, our businesses will grow substantially, exponentially. It would create quite a bit of revenue, not only for ourselves but for the state itself, and it would take away the unfair competition that we have with our bordering states that do allow this to happen for their citizens of their states.
Yeah, and so committee members know this is the same language that's made it out of the House the last couple of years for a different fate in the Senate, but we're going to try again. Some of us at least feel it's pro-business, pro-competitive, and want to give people an opportunity to open up their businesses subject to local zoning laws, et cetera. So, but a debate for another day, maybe for the floor of the Senate. Questions for Nick? All right, Nick, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And, thank you very much for your time.
MJ?
Next, I'm promoting Rachel Diamond to panelist from Broken Symmetry Brewing
All right. Online?
online. Yes.
Great. Rachel, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right, we can hear and see you. How are you?
Welcome to the brewery.
Oh, we just lost you. Hold on. MJ, we just lost her. Try again. Rachel, you there?
I'm here.
All right, there you are. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. Thanks for joining us. That's the brewery.
This is the brewery, yeah. We're here. How are you guys? Chairman Maroney, Chairman D'Agostino, ranking members, and distinguished members. I hope you're well. I'm Rachel. I am the brand development and head of distribution here at Broken Symmetry. We are a tiny brew pub in Bethel, Connecticut. And this year I have the absolute humbled honor of being the, I guess, executive director, they call it, of the Connecticut Brewers Guild. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about Section 6 of SB 905, where I want to say thank you so much. I think it's fantastic for our breweries. We keep our lines very clear, and we are hoping to follow the national guidelines and standards that say that every other week we should be cleaning the lines. So thank you very much for looking into that. And I also want to talk a little bit about Section 17 of SB 905, which I've spoken to all of the brewers here, and we're in definite opposition of decreasing the excise tax on RTDs. Few things. One is they have distilled liquor in them, and distilled liquor is much cheaper and easier to make. Beer is a very difficult product to make. It takes a lot more ingredients, it takes a lot more labor, and it also takes a lot more time. So we are paying a lower excise tax as a brewery just because it's a harder process to do. People who make distilled liquor and then are putting it in, cans and selling it on shelves in RTDs, ready to drink, canned cocktails, things like that. We're not seeing that kind of slow down. They're taking over our shelves, which is kind of hard as us little mom and pop shops try to make a way for ourselves. But also it allows maybe possibly opening the door to distilled liquors also coming down in their excise tax. So that is a concern of ours, that it might already, it's flooding the market, it might continue to flood the market. Our businesses might suffer. And then the last thing is that there are 2 states that have already done this. And we are seeing that not only are the places with excise tax, which are Michigan and Nebraska, they currently have a lowered excise tax, but they are charging greater on the shelves. Out of all of the states, everything else has come down except RTDs in those 2 states, which have gone up. So the consumer is not really seeing the benefit at all, if any, of having those excise tax decrease. So we're only lining the pockets of the liquor producers.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Representative Tigliano?
Yes, I just have a question on the last discussion that we were just having.
Sure.
Is it really lowering the tax on the RTDs if we're only taxing the liquor that's in the RTD? I think the purpose of the proposal, and I want your opinion on it, is to tax the liquor that's in the can as opposed to the soda that's in the can.
I personally believe it really does not. And I think the National Brewers Association would agree with me when I say it. In fact, I know that they agree with me, is that it does not, in fact, help the consumer at all. And it does not help the manufacturer at all. They are already seeing, a low cost of goods and a high profit margin. And they're basically just asking for a greater profit margin. And the customer will not see the benefit of that, and make it easier to make RTDs and remove beer from the shelves.
what if that tax break or whatever you want to call it, say we leave the excise tax the same, but we only tax the liquor in the can as opposed to the soda in the can, but we only limit it to small producers here in Connecticut, sort of like the special things that we've done for the brewery industry. Do you have an opinion?
Well, I actually don't have an opinion on that. Because I'm not quite sure how many RTD companies there are here in Connecticut. I don't know who is doing, I don't have the numbers on that. And I don't believe that those companies, the small producers within Connecticut, are the ones that are asking for this or flooding the market with RTDs. So it's usually the larger companies that are going to be asking for something like that. And they're the ones that are pushing other products, including those smaller producers here in Connecticut, towards the sides.
Well, I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Other questions from committee members? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And be sure to introduce yourself to other committee members. Again, she's the head of the New Brewers Guild, so make sure you guys get to know them if you've got guilds in your area, brewers in your area. I think Scott Dulch from the Restaurant Association is next. MJ? In person. Thank you, Scott.
Obviously wanted to do this in person and not that tired of Zoom.
Good to see you, and you're an
Good
old
to see
hand
you
at
too.
it, so welcome.
Good afternoon, Senator Maroney, Representative D'Agostino, Senator Ciccarella, Representative Tigliano, and members of the General Law Committee. My name is Scott Dolce. I'm the president and CEO of the Connecticut Restaurant Association. On behalf of Connecticut's 8,600 restaurant and food service locations, the CRA appreciates the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 6548. During the height of the pandemic, Governor Lamont signed an executive order allowing restaurants and caterers the opportunity to safely sell alcohol with their to-go food orders. This gave customers a new convenient way to add alcohol with takeout orders and was a new revenue opportunity for restaurant operators. In 2021, the committee and the entire Connecticut General Assembly supported legislation to continue to allow restaurants to sell alcohol to go. PA 2137 allowed restaurants this option and is currently scheduled to sunset June of 2024. House Bill 6548, which is the Department of Consumer Protection's proposal seeks to remove that sunset, therefore making this practice permanent. The CRA supports this proposal as many of our members and their customers alike have come to enjoy this added option while ordering takeout. Thank you for your time and considering my testimony, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scott. Questions from committee members? Representative.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Dulce. Just has there been any correlation between selling that and leaving your establishment and maybe motor vehicles? And the association might study something like that.
It's a great question, Representative. What we've seen in the research we've seen, not only in Connecticut, but across the country, there has not been any additional increases in that. Obviously, it's something we'll continue to keep an eye on, but the good thing is over the last, and this isn't just coming from the Connecticut Restaurant Association, we've seen it with the National Restaurant Association. There has been no uptick, which is a great sign in that, but it's a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for the answer, Scott. Representative Rochelle.
Thank you. I just wanted to know who did these studies regarding selling of alcohol as people are leaving establishments, and correlation, or if there is any correlation with an uptick in impaired driving.
I don't have the exact data. I know I can get that for you, Representative, from the National Restaurant Association. No, working with different states and just the data that they are able to receive at a state level, whether it's with their DCP or other ways that they try to track, with obviously the state. So I will get you more of that information specifically, but I know just speaking today, because we've looked into it in different questions throughout the pandemic on it, that it has not seen an uptick. Obviously, we would see more of that around other states pushing back. That this is just another option for people, but obviously the safety is utmost importance for consumers, and also for the owner operators. We talk about permittees and stuff like that to make sure that they're protected as well.
And are you seeking specifically for delivery purposes or also for takeout? If someone is dining in a restaurant and then says, I want to take something with us for the road to take home. Are you seeking for authorization for both?
Seeking authorization for the removal of the sunset, which has a couple different caveats in there, but obviously, food has to be purchased with that alcohol to go, with the alcohol to go, whether it is in a takeout side, if you're at dinner coming home, but there's obviously restrictions on how that's transported and sealed. That is still in there. We're not looking to change any of that. It's just right now, this conversation is just about the sunset provisions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Scott. Other questions or comments from committee members? Thank you, Scott. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, MJ.
Yeah, next up, online, I'm admitting right now, Ivana.
Ivana Vintoniak, I think.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, it's not letting me. Okay. Is she there?
Ivana, are you there? Do you have her in the waiting room?
I have her admitted to talk, but it's not letting me make her a panelist.
Hang on, Ivana, while we figure out the technical difficulties, if you can hear me.
She should be able to talk, so
Ivana, can you hear us?
maybe we come back.
All right, we'll come back to
Perfect.
Ivana.
Next is going to be Ryan on Zoom.
I think Ryan Brecklin and Tom Selman are probably together, but let's see.
Yeah, they can do that.
So if they're both there, you could put them both in together.
Good afternoon.
Ryan, how are you?
Well, yourself?
Good, good. Is Tom Selmont there with you as well?
He's in the other room. I think he's
All right.
joining now.
All right, we'll get him online as well. All right, you can go ahead.
Thank you, co-chairs, vice chairs, and members of the General Law Committee. My name is Ryan Brecklin, and I'm here in support of Senate Bill 905 and House Bill 6548, specifically the sections regarding the creation of a temporary auction permit to sell beer, wine, and spirits at live and online auction. I'm an auctioneer with Nest Egg Auctions, LLC, a Connecticut company with 26 years experience in the live and online auction marketplace. There is a great demand right now for collectible wine, beer, and spirits on the secondary market. As such, collectors and investors wishing to liquidate all or part of their collections are without a legal and local method for sale. Other states have established auction permits for the sale of spirits at live and online auction and are experiencing very good success right now. This permit would allow auctioneers to increase revenue, hire more employees, and generate additional tax revenue. It would provide a solution for estates and executors, and it would allow individuals to legally sell their collections. Thank you for the opportunity, and we appreciate your support.
Questions from committee members? Go ahead, Representative Vertigliano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, sir. I just have a couple of questions. The alcohol that you're going to auction, is it only from private sellers or it came from private individuals?
I would say that's the primary source. It would be nice if other permit holders were interested in consigning alcohol to auction.
When you say other permit holders, you mean like a package store who has aging inventory or?
Correct, yes. Also restaurants, let's say a restaurant that is closing, has a backstock of wine or wants to liquidate alcohol that is, not going to be used and still sealed.
So the auctioneer under the proposed language, which I was scrambling to look up so I could ask a better question, would only be able, it can't buy from a distributor, say, that all has to be aftermarket, somebody who's already purchased it through a distributor through the 3-tier system.
Correct, yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Other questions from committee members? All right. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. I think Tom was in the background there. Appreciate and again, thanks to your Representative Veach for also bringing this to our attention as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. MJ, was that it?
Yeah, let's try Ivana.
Oh, we'll try Ivana one more time.
Yeah, what is going on?
Ivana, can you hear us?
She might just not be here.
All right, going once.
Yeah. 'cause
Going
I keep
twice.
Asking her to unmute and she's not doing it. So
All right. Well, we'll take, you can contact her, we'll take written testimony as well. So thank you. Anybody else who signed up or is in the waiting room online? Anybody else in person who would like to testify on the bills scheduled for public hearing today? Leslie, you don't want to come up and give your 2 cents, right? No, I didn't. Yeah,
We know you have.
it's a big no. Yeah. All right. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Just state your name and do we need address? I don't know if we need address. No, name is fine.
Sorry, Tom Dubay, co-owner of Hartford Flavor Company and Distillery right here in Hartford, and president of the Connecticut Spirits Trail, a guild of our distilleries here in Connecticut. Thanks for allowing me to speak today. I just wanted to put down some additional support for the sunsetting of the cocktail to go component. Agree with everything Scott said. Secondly, on the farmers markets, we actually are seeing the farmers markets wanting spirits and beer and wine, cideries, etc. Many of us have exclusively or a large component of our products containing Connecticut agricultural products. So as opposed to some of the testimony previously, we feel as though it is congruent with agriculture in the state of Connecticut. We are all small makers. We all try to have a multiplier effect and use local agricultural products wherever possible. Our cucumbers come from Glastonbury. We grow and seek local botanics for our liqueurs, etc. So I think this is just something that we've received outreach and also positive response when we outreach to the farmers markets, be it Westport, be it South Windsor, be it Coventry. They're all pro-local. There is another component, which I'm not sure if it's appropriate for today's hearing. If not, I'll put some written testimony, but some possible cleaning up of the Connecticut craft permit, the cafe permit for local manufacturers. There is, I think, something that was just a miss when the wording was put into effect years ago, whereby in our tasting room operation, we are not able to purchase through a wholesaler a Connecticut made product. So I would love to pair our birch liqueur with the Litchfield bourbon, but I can't actually bring that into our operation in the tasting room. And it's really just a categorization issue. I can buy Connecticut wine, I can buy, which we are doing. I can buy Connecticut beer, which we are doing, but I can't buy Connecticut spirits. And we all feel like that's a loss. Probably unintended to the original wording. And I believe the Liquor Commission has empathy for our predicament as well. We feel it's a lose-lose-lose. We would love for our consumer to have a Connecticut, product in our glass. We would love for it to come through the three-tiered system so that everybody wins. And at this point, we're just not able to do that. So if potentially we could have some rewording to that to allow for it, that would be much appreciated in many ways. And I think that's it. Any questions I would love to answer?
No, thank you for that. And in particular, the testimony about the farmers markets and I think that was missing previously, that there are a lot of local ingredients grown, and not just with the grapes and the wine, but also with the distillers, our hops grown locally, used in beer, et cetera. Where this is a sort of a multifaceted market, the liquor industry in Connecticut.
Absolutely.
Wine and grapes certainly led the charge, but now there are other local components to it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Questions? All right. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Good bookend to the public hearing. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to testify on the bills before us today or concepts before us today? All right, going once, twice, we will close the public hearing of the General Law Committee today. Thank you all very much. We'll see you all on Thursday.